Imagine being 19 years old, standing in a farmhouse full of 300 people, wearing a dress you sewed yourself, about to make a vow that will govern every decision of your life from that moment forward. Who you live with, where you live, how you raise your children, what you are allowed to do, what you are not allowed to do, and what community you belong to for the rest of your life. There is no divorce in the Amish world. There is no trial period. There is no taking it back. When an Amish woman gets married, she is not just choosing a husband. She is choosing her entire existence. And the night before that happens, in farmhouses across Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and beyond, young Amish women cry. Not because something is wrong, not because they are being forced, but because they understand, with a clarity that most people their age in the outside world do not possess, exactly what they are stepping into. To understand why an Amish wedding carries so much emotional gravity, you have to understand first what Amish life looks like before marriage, because the contrast is everything. Amish young people go through a period called Rumspringa, which translates roughly from Pennsylvania Dutch as running around. It begins around age 16 and continues until the young person decides, Artun or not, to be baptized into the Amish church. During Rumspringa, the rules that govern Amish adult life are loosened considerably. Young people spend time with peers, attend social gatherings, and in more progressive communities are permitted to interact with the outside world to a degree that would be unthinkable for a baptized adult. The Amish do not believe in baptizing infants. They believe that a person must choose the faith consciously as an adult, with full understanding of what that choice means. Rumspringa is the period during which that choice is being considered. What most people in the outside world do not understand about Rumspringa is that the vast majority of young Amish people, roughly 80 to 90% by most estimates, choose to be baptized and remain in the community. They are not trapped. They are not kept ignorant of alternatives. They choose. And what makes that choice remarkable is not that they make it, but the conditions under which they make it. They are choosing to remain in a community that will require more of them than any other community in modern America asks of its members. It will require absolute submission to the ordinal. It will require giving up car ownership, higher education, and most of the individual freedoms that the surrounding culture treats as baseline rights. It will require accepting, permanently, a life circumscribed by faith, community, and tradition. And still, 8 or 9 out of every 10 young Amish people choose it, voluntarily, with full awareness of the alternative. When they choose knowing that baptism is not just a religious declaration. It is a social contract with consequences that are fully real and fully enforced. It binds them to the ordinal, the unwritten but thoroughly understood and deeply internalized set of rules that governs every visible and invisible aspect of Amish life for the rest of their lives. A baptized member who later leaves the community faces the maidum, the shunning, which means that their family, their friends, and every person they have ever known is required by the church to limit contact with them, to not eat at the same table, to treat them as spiritually separated from the community they were born into. That consequence is real. Young Amish people know it before they choose, and they choose anyway. For a young Amish woman, the moment that contract is sealed in its most intimate and permanent practical terms is not baptism. It is marriage. Amish courtship is nothing like what the outside world imagines, and it is nothing like what most reality television shows about Amish life have portrayed. It is quiet, private, and deeply serious. Young Amish men and women meet primarily at church, at community work gatherings, and at the Sunday evening singings, structured social events where young people gather to sing hymns together and where the social dynamics of courtship play out in a very particular way. There are no dating apps. There are no third-party matchmakers in most communities. A young man who is interested in a young woman will signal his interest, often through intermediaries or through the simple act of offering to drive her home in his buggy after a singing. If she accepts, courtship has begun, and Amish courtship, once begun, moves with a seriousness of purpose that most modern relationships never approach. The reason for that seriousness is simple and profound. In the Amish world, there is no concept of casual dating. There is no seeing where things go. A young man does not begin courting a young woman unless he is genuinely considering her as a wife. A young woman does not accept courtship unless she is genuinely considering him as a husband. The entire community knows who is courting whom. Privacy is limited in a community of that intimacy, and the social weight of that knowledge ensures that courtship is entered into with intention on both sides. This is not a culture of romantic experimentation. It is a culture of deliberate, purposeful partnership formation, and everyone involved understands the stakes from the beginning. Courtship typically lasts somewhere between 1 and 2 years, conducted largely in private. The couple spending time together at her family's home, talking, getting to know each other's character, values, and vision for family life. Physical affection before marriage is strictly prohibited by the ordinal in most communities. The relationship is built almost entirely on conversation, on shared work, on the observation of how the other person conducts themselves in daily life. In some more traditional communities, there is a practice called bundling or bed courtship, where the courting couple is permitted to spend time together in the same bed, fully clothed, sometimes separated by a bundling board, as a way of allowing extended private conversation in a household where there is otherwise no private space. This practice, which shocks most outside observers, is actually a remarkably practical solution to the problem of creating conversational intimacy in a family home where privacy is structurally limited. It is not what the modern imagination assumes it is. When a young Amish man decides he wants to marry a young woman, the proposal is made privately, often several months before the wedding will occur. There is no public spectacle. There is no elaborate gesture. He asks, she answers. And if the answer is yes, the preparation begins immediately, because an Amish wedding is not a celebration organized by an event planner. It is a community undertaking of enormous scope that requires months of work from dozens of people, most of it falling on the bride's family and the bride herself. The wedding traditionally takes place on a Tuesday or Thursday in November, after the harvest is complete and before the deep cold of winter sets in. The choice of November is practical. It is the only time of year when the entire farming community can pause long enough to gather for a celebration of this scale. A typical Amish wedding hosts between 200 and 500 guests, all of whom are fed multiple meals over the course of the day. The food is prepared almost entirely by the community, with neighbours and relatives beginning to arrive days before the wedding to help cook, bake, clean and set up. The scale of the undertaking is staggering. Hundreds of pies, gallons of mashed potatoes, entire roasted chickens by the dozens. And the bride, in the weeks leading up to her wedding, is deeply involved in all of it, sewing her own wedding dress, helping prepare food, organising the household, and doing all of this while carrying the full emotional weight of what is about to happen to her life. The wedding dress itself is a detail that stops most outsiders completely when they hear it. An Amish bride does not wear white. She does not wear a dress purchased from a boutique or rented for the occasion. She wears a new dress in a modest, solid colour, typically blue, teal or purple, depending on the community's tradition, that she has sewn herself with her own hands in the weeks before the wedding. And this dress will not be packed away in a preservation box after the ceremony. It will become her best church dress for the rest of her life. She will wear it every Sunday. She will see it in her wardrobe every single morning for the next 40 or 50 years. And when she dies, she will be buried in it. Let that land for a moment. The dress she puts on the morning of her wedding is the dress they will put on her body at the end of her life. There is no other culture in the modern Western world that makes this statement so plainly and so materially. The Amish are not being morbid, they are being honest. Marriage and death are the two events that define the arc of a life, and in the Amish tradition, they are linked by a single garment that the woman made with her own hands before she fully understood what either one meant. Every time she puts on that dress for church, she is reminded simultaneously of the day she became a wife and of the fact that she will wear it one final time when that life is complete. The Amish understand the weight of symbols in a way that a culture of disposability, of fast fashion and short commitments has largely lost the capacity to grasp. The ceremony itself begins early in the morning and lasts for several hours. 3 or 4 hours is typical, and in some communities longer. It is conducted in the local dialect of Pennsylvania Dutch, with lengthy scripture readings and hymns that have been sung at Amish weddings for centuries without modification. The congregation sits on hard wooden benches, without heat in the barn or the home where the service is held, without the cushions or the climate control or the carefully timed program that a modern wedding offers. The length and the physical plainness of the ceremony are not accidents. They are intentional. The community is not gathered to be entertained. They are gathered to witness, to be present for something that matters. And the length of the service is itself a form of respect. It says that this event is important enough to give it real time, not the 45-minute ceremony that modern weddings have compressed the occasion to. There are no rings exchanged. Rings are considered ornamental and worldly, and are prohibited by the ordnung in most communities. There are no flowers. There is no professional photographer moving quietly through the ceremony with a camera. There is no carefully chosen first dance song. What there is at the absolute center of the ceremony, stripped of everything decorative, is the vow. And the Amish wedding vow is not the version that most people in the outside world are familiar with. The bishop asks the couple, separately and solemnly, whether they will remain together until death, and critically, whether the bride will be faithful to her husband and care for him in adversity, in affliction, and in difficulty. Not simply in sickness and in health, as most Western wedding vows phrase it, in adversity, in affliction, in difficulty. The specific language of the vow is not accidental. It acknowledges explicitly and without softening that hardship is not a possibility, but a certainty. That difficulty is not an aberration to be hoped against, but an expectation to be prepared for. That the vow being made in that room is not a promise made in the warm glow of romantic feeling, but a commitment entered with clear eyes, full knowledge, and a community of witnesses who will hold both people to it for the rest of their lives. This is, in part, why Amish women cried the night before their wedding. They are not naive about what they are committing to. They have watched their mothers, they have watched their aunts and their older sisters. They know what an Amish wife's life looks like: the relentless labour, the large families, the deference to a husband's authority that the ordnung prescribes, the permanence of the commitment, and the beauty of it all at the same time. They are not crying because they do not want it. Most of them deeply want it. They are crying because they are young enough to still feel the full weight of forever. They are crying because they are leaving something, the particular freedom of girlhood, the particular intimacy of living in their parents' home, the particular ease of being a daughter rather than a wife. And they are wise enough to grieve what they are leaving before they step into what they are choosing. After the wedding ceremony, the new couple does not leave for a honeymoon. There is no hotel booking, no airport, no carefully curated private retreat from the world. Instead, they spend their wedding night at the bride's family home, surrounded by the same 200, 300 or 400 guests who witnessed the ceremony just hours before, eating the enormous meal that the community spent days preparing and singing hymns together long into the evening. The wedding night is not private, it is communal. and that is entirely intentional. In the Amish worldview, the beginning of a marriage is not a private event to be sealed in isolation. It is a community event to be witnessed, celebrated, and immediately integrated into the existing social fabric of the church district. In the weeks following the wedding, the couple travels together across the community, visiting relatives, friends, and neighbours, staying with family along the way, receiving household gifts of quilts, tools, canned food, and furniture from the people who will form the support network of their married life. It is a honeymoon of sorts, but one that is entirely communal, entirely public, and entirely oriented toward building the relational infrastructure of the new household within the community rather than escaping from it. Privacy in the Amish understanding of new marriage is not the point and was never the point. The marriage is not a private arrangement between two individuals. It is a new household being woven into an ancient network of families, faith, shared labour, and mutual obligation that has been sustaining people for generations. The young couple is not starting their life together by retreating from their community. They are starting it by embedding themselves more deeply in it. What the outside world tends to miss when it looks at Amish marriage through the lens of its own cultural assumptions about individual freedom, romantic love, and personal fulfillment is that the Amish model produces something that the modern model often fails to. It produces marriages that last. It produces families that are deeply rooted. It produces communities where children grow up with both parents, where elderly people are cared for at home by their families, where the social contract of commitment is taken seriously by everyone because everyone can see the consequences of breaking it. The Amish divorce rate is not zero, but it is vanishingly small compared to the 50% rate in the wider American culture. That is not because Amish women are oppressed into staying. It is because the entire culture, from courtship to ceremony to the words of the vow itself, treats marriage as what it actually is, the most consequential decision a person makes in their life, deserving of the most serious possible preparation, intention, and respect. An Amish girl cries before her wedding night because she understands this, because she has been raised in a community that has never pretended marriage is easy or temporary or something to be tried and discarded if it stops feeling good. She cries because she is brave enough to choose something permanent in a world, even her small, quiet world, that offers no guarantees. She cries because she loves the person she is becoming and grieves the person she is leaving behind. She cries because the dress she sewed will be the dress she is buried in. And somewhere in her 19-year-old heart, she knows that. And she chooses it anyway. That is not a weakness. That is not oppression. That is one of the most profound acts of human courage there is. Stepping into forever with open eyes, in a blue dress you made yourself, in a farmhouse full of people who will hold you to your word for the rest of your life. There is one more thing about Amish marriage that the outside world rarely discusses, and it may be the most quietly radical aspect of the entire institution. In a culture that has largely abandoned the idea that marriage is a lifelong, unconditional commitment, where the average marriage that ends in divorce lasts about 8 years, where prenuptial agreements are standard practice, where the cultural messaging around relationships is saturated with the idea that your needs come first and you should leave anything that no longer serves you. The Amish position marriage as a covenant that is simply not open for renegotiation. Not because women are powerless, not because men are dominant in some abusive sense, but because the community has collectively decided, generation after generation, that the institution is more important than the individual comfort of any given moment, that the vow means what it says, that the difficulty the bishop named explicitly in the ceremony is not a reason to leave. It is the reason the vow was required in the first place. An Amish girl cries before her wedding night because she is standing at the edge of the only cliff that matters, and she knows it. She has watched enough married women in her community to know that the life ahead of her will contain seasons of exhaustion, of grief, of hardship, and of joy so deep it cannot be named. She cries because she is leaving her mother's house forever. She cries because the girl she has been for 19 years is stepping aside for the woman she is about to become. She cries because the dress hanging in the next room is the most permanent thing she owns, and she understands exactly what that means. And then the morning comes. She puts the dress on. She walks into the room. She makes the vow. And she means every word of it, in adversity, in affliction, in difficulty, with clear eyes and a full heart, the way only a person who has already grieved the weight of it can. If this story moved you or gave you something to think about, please hit the like button and subscribe. We cover the Amish world honestly and in depth, and there is so much more of this story left to tell.